Nurses, are you tired of spending weeks or even months finding the perfect job that matches your specialty with your ideal shift and salary? LinkedIn has improved your job search experience. Search by specialty, the shift you want to work, and the salary you want to make. Go to linkedin.com/nurses and begin searching today. That's linkedin.com/nurses.
Note, side effects may include less time finding the perfect job, working a shift that you love with a salary that can take you to St. Thomas, Jamaica, and continuous smiling because of how simple this process was.
Empire.
Hello, and welcome to the Last Man Standig podcast. Yes, I'm your host, Ben Standig. I cover the Washington Commanders for The Athletic, which means at the moment I'm at a hotel room in Kentucky outside of Cincinnati, because that is where the Washington Commanders beat the Cincinnati Bengals last night, and maybe more importantly to the future of this franchise, Jayden Daniels. Wow, Mike Smeltz. Jayden Daniels delivered a performance of the ages. I'm usually not one to go with the crazy hyperbole, but I think on this day, after what we just witnessed, go nuts, people. An incredible performance by Jayden Daniels. We'll talk about that and everything else that happened in the Commanders' 38-33 win over the Bengals. As I just sort of said, Mike Smeltz, my guy from The Athletic, is with me here. Before I get to some of the other notes, Mike, did you sleep last night?
I mean, this is one of those games. It's rare as a Commanders fan, which is what I am, to want to actually watch post game, to want to revel in the conversation after the game. Typically, as a Commanders fan, I want to avoid, like in Ghostbusters, down into like the bank of the firehouse where they live, like they put them in that vat. Usually, I want to put my Commanders memories into that Ghostbusters vat, because I want to expunge it. I want to exercise it from my body. This was a game I wanted to revel in, Ben. This is, I said this as a joke, but it's true, the biggest game in Commanders, not Redskins history, not Washington football team history, though we'll talk about that. This is the biggest game in Commanders history. Jayden Daniels was him. He was it. He was everything that as a fan, we do that. I'm going to go a little crazy here, but just because it was an amazing performance. And in the context of the season where all these quarterbacks stink, rookie quarterbacks in particular stink, Jayden Daniels put on by far probably one of the best performances by any quarterback this season in a hostile environment, where the quarterback on the other side is a guy who has stared down Patrick Mahomes, who he himself had a great, and Jayden Daniels did it. He made the plays in the crucial moments, and this wasn't a game of luck. It was no penalties, basically, and no turnovers. I think it was the first game. Ben, did you see the stat?
I saw all the stats.
1940 without a turnover or a punt.
Well, yeah,
what were they doing in 1940? What was that game?
Who knows? All right, there's a lot to discuss here. The win, I mean, it wasn't just Jayden Daniels, but it was a lot of Jayden Daniels. So we'll talk about that, the post-game situation, and more here on the Last Man Standing podcast. Of course, make sure you are subscribing. Look, I mean, you don't want to miss any of the conversation about Jayden Daniels and wherever else this team goes. Now 2-1 after 3 games. So again, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you do your podcasting. Also, subscribe to The Athletic if you haven't already. Articles up this morning for myself and the great David Aldridge. And of course, I've written about Jayden Daniels a ton. You can go back and see, I had a story yesterday about the Jayden Daniels, Joe Burrow, not just matchup, but their paths to this point that are both very similar to each other and yet very different from so many of the other these quarterbacks. And yeah, of course, you can follow me on X at Ben Standig. You can hit up Mike on LinkedIn. All right. I don't even know what I may be forgetting something else to mention in this intro, but we're just going to get to it. It's early morning here. I think I slept about 3 hours, but we're doing fine. I need to get some coffee, but I think Jayden Daniels, I got home last night from the Monday Night Football. I mean, I probably got back to my hotel room around 2:30 in the morning, give or take. And when I finally sort of settled in, I was so wired. not because Jayden Daniels was amazing, but because the game. It's always after you finish writing, it's always like a lot of adrenaline flowing to get a deadline. You got to get this stuff done, but also like that game was just crazy fun. A game where nobody punts, every single drive crossed midfield. I mean, a friend of mine just said this. Could you imagine if you didn't know what happened and you said, "Hey, the Bengals scored 33 points and didn't punt"? You'd be like, "Well, I guess that defense still needs a lot of work," and they do. But you wouldn't believe what happened on the other end. It was, I don't know what it was like, obviously, watching it on television because I was watching it from the press box. And I don't know what Troy Aikman was saying or Joe Buck or just how the world was consuming it. But to watch Jayden Daniels over and over again, I mean, he never seemed to look flustered. He has told us before he never gets rattled on the field. And you hear that and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, because you're playing in college. It's a little different.
Right.
When Lou Amaronu's defense is coming at you, it's different, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And look, I think there's a lot to get to. We'll talk about the specific plays. There's so many of them to discuss, including the breathtaking 27-yard touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin that, according to Next Gen Stats, had the lowest probability of any touchdown to be scored this year. There's a ton of insane stats. He was 21 for 23, set the rookie all-time record for highest completion percentage in a game. I think I saw through 3 games. I think ESPN had this through 3 games. His completion percentage, the top 3 in league history through 3 games in a season were Drew Brees, Jayden Daniels, and Tom Brady.
Which officially Jayden's better than Tom Brady, right? Like we can declare that this morning, Ben. He's the new GOAT. He's the new GOAT.
That's what I heard. That's all I heard. I want to start here because, and this is to try to give a little bit of sort of like insight. Obviously all the film nerds are going to look at all the highlights and they're going to break down all the throws and they're going to tell you how amazing he was and how he saw this and the defense showed that and how he reacted and all that's true and real and great and enjoy it and all that. But I don't think that to me is what showed last night. What I think showed last night was what the thing we've been talking about all summer, going back to OTAs, going back to what we've heard from players and coaches. And, now I've been around Jayden Daniels a fair amount, both, some interviews, press conferences, just being in the locker room, all that. What separates him is that he has got, I don't know if you're going to say it's ice water in his veins, but there is a chill about him in the best way possible. He doesn't get rattled. That includes, he also doesn't get cocky when things go well, as he did last night. Everybody is praising him to the hilt, but when he came into the press conference, it was the same guy that we saw Wednesday at a press conference or in the locker room with the guys. His demeanor is very calm, very measured. He doesn't get high necessarily, doesn't get low, and his personality. He has the ability to have guys. Terry McLaurin talked about this the other day. He has the ability to have guys gravitate towards him as like on and off the field. And to be calm. Last game when they drove down the field on the last drive to beat the Giants, Olamide Zaccheaus said that he was like Daniels was laughing as they were driving, not like in a, hey, I'm screwing around here, but like he was just that calm and that poise and still having fun. And the poise word has been used over and over again. I heard it last night, unprompted, by Bobby Wagner, by Dan Quinn, by McLaurin, by Zaccheaus, by others. And that to me is ultimately, as much as the athleticism is spectacular and the arm talent. I mean, again, some of these throws were just off the charts, but his vibe is, I think, what maybe separates him from other quarterbacks in the league. I will say perhaps even more than other quarterbacks that have come through here, because like there's no sense of me here. There is a sense of team. And again, I say it myself and it sounds, yeah, okay. Everybody says it's all about the team. Everything I'm seeing has said to me that this is real. And then to see it last night. And in addition to that, Mike, the growth, like the first, you remember way back when they got smoked by Tampa, he was a guy that looked like he had that fight or flight instinct going on. He was constantly leaving the pocket. He was constantly running around, and that's when he ended up with the 16 official carries. And he's running too much. He's going to get hit. Then you go to the Giants game. The first half was kind of more the same. 4 sacks. He was sacked 4 times in the first half. moving a little too much in the pocket. It felt like he was getting, he was putting himself into some harm's way. But in the second half, we started to see what people have been saying all offseason, that he learns from his mistakes. Again, another one of those things you hear like, all right, look where the evolution was. He stood in the pocket against the Giants, even when pressure was around him. He threw that 34-yard pass to Noah Brown down the middle, which was also part of the evolutionary, that the ball went down the field, not just side to side, or maybe in Cameron Taylor's vernacular, look more like a college offense to an extent. And then last night, again, you can maybe tell me if I'm wrong on from what you saw on TV, but not only did the offensive line do a great job to limit Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals pass rush for the most part, but he stood tall in the pocket. He did not run. He ran, but he ran with purpose, not because it was like getting, some sort of jitters. He grew just from over the last 2 weeks to a guy that stood there, and then, to make these passes, fourth down passes, including on the last drive to Zach Ertz. He rolled out the pass to McLaurin. And again, the ball was going down the field. There was a 55-yard pass to McLaurin earlier that set up a touchdown. Then this one, I just think go from week one. I mean, forget what I saw at OTAs and preseason and all that, to go from the evolution from week one to this game in 2 short weeks is pretty spectacular. And I don't know where this is going. And I don't want to, joking aside about Tom Brady and the GOAT, like, who knows where this is going? And obviously, the future is unknown. But wow, if you're a Commanders fan and you're not blown away by what you saw, again, not just in terms of the performance, but you've been paying attention, the evolution of the growth that he's just made, that you've seen. Forget everything else. I don't know what to tell you. That was as thrilling as a performance as I can recall for a quarterback in these parts from the non-Super Bowl era, at least.
Yeah, and as a fan, it's like, so I listen to you, Ben. I listen to all the reporters out there in Ashburn. I listen to the coaches. I watch the press conferences. And, Dan Quinn, and I'm going to ask you about Dan Quinn's demeanor after this game, because I thought it was interesting how calm he was. If you did a split screen of him in this game and the Bucs game, it's actually almost identical, which is hard to even imagine if you really think about it. For too long, you hear of how exciting it is in practice in Ashburn, how this guy, De'Ami Brown, or whoever it is blowing up in practice. Cole Turner. Cole Turner is the next great tight end.
Right.
And and then you get excited and then it doesn't happen, right? And De'Ami Brown actually had a few nice plays tonight. But so the fear with me that was holding me back with Jayden Daniels, and I'm still not I'm not going to say he's going to be Tom Brady, but we have this game, this amazing game. We saw all the things, and that's what all the things that we heard about in practice. And I listened to post game with Terry McLaurin. I listened with Dan Quinn, all of them talking about this is what we've seen, and we're excited that it's shown up now in a game. And you talk about poise, Ben. So this is maybe the thing you miss by being in the press box is it is unquestionable that Jayden Daniels has poise, but what he's not is this robot that has no emotion, right? There's a version of a quarterback with poise where they are just they just chunk next play. They don't think about it. If you remember I'm not comparing to Tom Brady, but Tom Brady had big emotions on the field. He would curse at his teammates. He would say, "Let's effing go." He would yell at coaches. I'm not saying Jayden Daniels is Tom Brady, but on the broadcast, you could see him, there's that fourth down call where, some people interpreted Jayden yelling at the sidelines that he wanted to go for it. I interpreted it as he wanted Kliff to get the play call in, because it seems like there was a couple of times when Kliff was having trouble get the play call in. Jayden is a cool, what he understands is the moment, the importance of the moment. And Ben, I know you're a Wizards fan, or you've covered the Wizards. Just to bring it back, it's like John Wall and Bradley Beal Wizards, they never understood the moment. Never. Turnovers in the most awful part of the game. To go back to football, Jayden Daniels understands this is fourth down, guys. We need to, this is it. This is where I'm going to use everything I have at my disposal. And, I had one thing in my little notes here, that this is the type of game that are going to give defensive coordinators absolute nightmares when they think about Jayden, because not only is he incredibly accurate at throwing the ball, he's throwing the ball downfield. So it's not just a screen game college offense. He's running the ball, and he's running the ball in sort of QB design runs and breaking down and pass coverage, and I got to run the ball. I'm a little worried about running up the middle of a line. That's going to lead to fumbles. It's going to lead to hits. But it can't be stated enough, Ben. This was like, there's nothing that we could say here in this space that will be too grand for what we saw in Cincinnati on the border of Kentucky last night. I mean, it was truly one of the best quarterback performances I have seen. And 1988 was when I was born. So like, I haven't seen much, so that doesn't really speak to much, but it was phenomenal.
Right. And the thing is, like I said, like we see lots of quarterbacks this season, every season, who talent wise, athleticism wise, are off the charts, that they can do things that we're all going, what the heck, how's that even feasible? And Jayden Daniels has a lot of that, but the way he did it with the calm and the control, like, he's, the Bengals, whenever they would get near him, the amount of times he would make a pass rusher or a possible tackler miss him. But it wasn't like he did run fast, but it wasn't like he was just blazing by a guy at every single time. Like, to use your Wizards point, John Wall was the fastest guy in the league there for a while, right? And when he got a full head of steam, good luck stopping him. It wasn't just that, though. It was the ability to, while doing that, keep his eyes up, calmly move so that he was still a dual threat while behind the line of scrimmage. And again, this wasn't even something he was necessarily doing at ease 2 weeks ago. And you already saw the jump. And one thing that stood out to me going back to the preseason, I know when we were at the in Miami for the joint practice, I spoke to Kliff Kingsbury one-on-one for a couple minutes, and we talked about the play calling. And there's because right, that first game, right, what do we remember? Against the Jets, the first third down of Jayden Daniels' career, he gets the call and decides, no, I don't like this screen. He audibles, throws a 42-yard pass to De'Ami Brown. And I said at that point, to me, this is a guy who is not afraid. And that, as much as anything else, is so important, because if you don't have confidence, doesn't matter really how good your skills are, you're in trouble. But it's not just that. His decision making. The coaches talked about this all the time this summer. And when we're watching in training camp, there's no pass rush. You can't hit the quarterback. Throwing against Washington secondary, you can't always tell exactly what you're seeing, but they constantly talked about the decision making. Wow, he seems to make the right play every time. And so I asked Kingsbury that day, hey, like, you're calling the plays, you're the offensive coordinator, whatever, you're Kliff Kingsbury, you've done these kinds of things. Are you really allowing your rookie quarterback to sort of have some autonomy? He goes, yeah. I tell him, I see him, you're out there, I'm not. You see the play in real situation, I don't. And basically he had shown him enough at that point to say, go ahead, tell me what you think, and I'm going to probably trust you to do it. That is pretty hardcore. These coaches are more controlling than anybody, and they have allowed that. And we saw, I don't know how much he specifically was audibling in this game, but like, clearly his decision making is off the charts. Again, 0 interceptions so far this season. The offense doesn't even have a turnover, which is maybe more luck than good, but nonetheless, he's not putting the ball in harm's way. It's not very often in 3 games we've been going, oh boy, he got lucky there. With like the amount of times, with most quarterbacks, you go, oh, they could have thrown.
Well, like Heineke was the king of throwing bad passes that wouldn't get intercepted. Like, right. He had the worst, and Wentz too before him.
Hey everyone, Bram Weinstein here, play-by-play voice of the Commanders and founder of Empire Media, and we are so excited that Ben Standig has come along and joined us with Empire with his awesome podcast, Last Man Standig. I wanted to tell you about our 2 other primary shows, and selfishly, mine, the Bram Weinstein Show, which can be heard on ESPN 630 in DC from 11 to 12, but then becomes a podcast that goes up immediately at 12 o'clock, 5 days a week. Some of the best Commanders and DC sports coverage you're going to get. So if you love Ben's show, check out mine as well. And also, don't forget to check out the John Keim Report from Empire Media as well, the ESPN Insider. We are bringing you the best Commanders coverage all season long. Be sure to subscribe to all 3 of our Empire shows, Last Man Standing, The Bram Weinstein Show, and The John Keim Report.
just to broaden this out, we'll stay with Jayden Daniels. Just to stay with the offense, it was interesting. I've been saying that for a while. Everybody's lamenting about who's the other receiver opposite Terry McLaurin and all that stuff. Well, one, I have been a proponent, this whole Brandon Ayuk stuff was coming up. And everybody's like, trade for him. And my stance has been, hell no. Not because Ayuk. You don't spend a lot of money on two receivers, period. That's just not a way to build a team. But people keep telling me, oh, Ben, what are you talking about? The teams do. No. Not smart teams. I mean, if you're
That's
like
a great impression of Twitter people. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
If you're the Miami Dolphins, you're just going to go a fast break team. Okay, that may make sense. But if you're more of the standard, hey, we're going to be balanced and all these things, that's not what you do. And part of the reason is if you have a star quarterback, he makes up for so much else. The talent on this offense didn't just get better over the last 2 weeks. It's the same guys. I guess you could say Noah Brown showed up and he had another solid game, but Luke McCaffrey had a little bit of a breakout here, had a huge catch on a fourth down in the first quarter, right, to keep a drive going that led to points. Like they still need a number two receiver. It's not like things have changed. It's not like Zach Ertz is suddenly not 2018 Zach Ertz or whatever year he went to the Pro Bowl. Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson, they didn't have massive yards yesterday, but like off the bat, they using the two of them together was so smart because they're two of your better guys in the field. Figure out a way to get them both out there. Eckler had a great game, both as a running back, a receiver, and a kick returner. Unfortunately, he left with a concussion. At the moment, we don't know his status. He's not traveling with the team to Phoenix today. The team is going straight to Phoenix rather than fly home. I'll be going with them, or not with them. They're already there. I'll be flying out there later. We don't know what Eckler's deal is, but like they were both great. And again, I also want to say, give a lot of credit to Kliff Kingsbury. I wrote before the season started that it's not about like how pretty the offense is. It's just going to be a real tactical deal. You've got to figure out how to take these parts, a lot of random parts, and make this work. Sure, you've got this quarterback. We'll see how quickly he adjusts. Obviously, it's pretty quick. But Kingsbury's got to make this work with, again, like how many people in your fantasy football league, Mike, are on this offense, on the receivers, or on anybody's team? One guy. Terry McLaurin. I mean, maybe you took a flyer on Luke McCaffrey.
I had Trent Scott as my tight end this week, so there's two guys. But yeah.
There you go. That would be actually a funny bit if it was at all the standard positions, except you could take one offensive lineman per week to see who gets the thick six touchdown.
There's two things, like the Kliff Kingsbury. I mean, I'm looking at a quote from Zach Taylor last night. Someone asked Zach Taylor about Cam Taylor-Britt's comments about the college offense, and Zach Taylor says, we don't need to take shots like that. That team has not punted in 2 weeks, right? And so Kliff is what you're seeing from Kliff is like, they did the diamond formation where they do four wides with a wide receiver on the line, two behind it, and then like a third, well, it would be the fourth wide receiver. They'd make a diamond formation. That's kind of like a classic Kliff Kingsbury offense. But and everyone, of course, mentions this, but it's completely true. Like in a game where Brian Robinson Jr. only got 33 yards rushing, he ran the ball 16 times in a competitive game the whole way. It wasn't like he got just a bunch of carries in the last drive just to soak up the clock. Like they rely on the ground. Jayden Daniels, as great of a game as he had, now he had 23 pass attempts, but like there were plenty of times when he was dropping back and then he decided to run, right? Like I don't know how many QB design runs, but let's say 7 times he dropped back and then he went for it, right? And then he ran. So he attempted 30 passes. 30 passes is like Sam Howell basically never had a game where he only attempted 30 passes. He attempted like 45 passes every game. Kliff is designing an offense that is taking advantage of his quarterback, his players, trusting his players. Terry had a really interesting, I think it was with Scott Van Pelt on SportsCenter, which is, and you may have known this, but Terry told Kliff, give me a shot on, cover zero, give me a deep ball, which was the touchdown the 10% chance probability pass that's like the Jayden highlight for the ages right now, that he's staring down. And I'm sure you've seen the NFL Next Gen Stats, the little bubble grid where they're showing, and it's the football's actually on the defender's back before Jayden throws it. And Terry is not even past the cornerback at that point. Like you can't credit what's happening with Jayden if you don't really look at Kliff and say, like, so far it's going well. It's early and there's an evolution to it. And if we talked after last week, we'd be like, guys, why can't you get in the end zone? But they evolved, they got better as a team. And I think that's the most exciting thing, where it's like their defense needs to get a heck of a lot better. They do need to see more from a second wide receiver, right? Like because like there's going to be games when Terry may miss. And if Terry's out, then this wide receiving core is like really kind of doesn't have much going for it. But like the fact that they were able to do this while they're still growing and evolving, I mean, that's the exciting part of this young team, is that this is happening. They go and beat the Bengals. The Bengals were desperate. They were 0-2. They're a team that believes they're going to go to the Super Bowl, compete for the Super Bowl. And they went in and won a Monday Night Football game against a desperate team. I mean, it's that level of performance.
Yeah. I mean, look, just to be clear, I picked the Bengals to win. I had them winning by 27-17. And the larger reason for that was I've already bought into Jayden Daniels in terms of where he's going, But to your point, the Bengals, they're going to really go 0-3 3 weeks ago. If I had told you one of these teams would leave Monday Night Football 0-3 and the other one would be 2-1, you'd be like, oh, well, I guess Jayden's getting off to a slow start, right? Nobody would have said the opposite. Obviously, that's the case. And, you can't just throw away all the data we thought until you see things play out. You can't just say all of a sudden the Bengals are bad. At least you got to wait and see what happens. That said, the thing about Washington is they are an ascending team because of the quarterback, with all the holes still. They're still quite again, the Bengals didn't punt. They scored 33 points. I saw a couple numbers that said they had the best like EPA game of any team this year. But it didn't matter. Oh, I mean, because Jayden Daniels and basically this game came down to the Commanders only had to settle for 1 field goal. The Bengals had to settle for 3, missed one of them, and that was more or less the difference in the game. But it is just again, remarkable to see where this is going. You mentioned the defense. I mean, again, the game starts, they throw a deep ball to Jamar Chase. You had to know Jamar Chase was going to go off on this game. It was the 3rd game of the year for him. He hadn't, quite got there yet. He had a rough offseason with his contract talks. He gets going, gets 2 touchdowns. T. Higgins was back. He was a factor, but not like he didn't make a ton of massive plays. Zach Moss was really effective for them on the ground. Washington still has a lot of questions, right? Defensively against, in the secondary, the pass rush is still a very much a work in progress. The next week it's Kyler Murray is going to be, coming off a loss. He's, like Daniels, he's very elusive, a lot smaller, but elusive, can throw the ball down the field. Marvin Harrison Jr. is already showing to be a threat. These rookies are on offense are really coming on strong. So that's going to be a problem or a concern. Until otherwise proven otherwise, that's just the way it's going to be. But I think even there, like you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but it felt like the defense, the tackling seemed to be improved. I mean, even if they were making plays, there was like multiple guys going at the ball. There seemed to be more
for sure
intensity out there. By the way, I loved it. I talked about this the other day, that if you're gonna, similar to like how to play Eckler and Robinson together, get your best guys out there. I said, well, watch and see if Johnny Newton ends up playing with Deron Payne and John Allen at times. Newton didn't play a ton of snaps, but at times he did play with those guys, and I like that creativity. They're not just stuck in some box, that they're willing to just sort of throw things at the wall, but with a plan. It's not haphazard, and all that is great. So they're going to have to work on the defense plenty.
Yeah, no question. I mean, and like so like a key moment for growth is Sanders still gets burned by Jamar, and it was like they showed the replay, and it was bad coverage. Like he was not prepared for Jamar Chase to run straight at him and by him, right?
Well, also that was this. I don't. Again, this is where their problem with the corner room is. On the one hand, Sanders still might be one of their top 2 corners, but to put him one-on-one against one of the 2 or 3 best receivers in the game, that's completely unfair to him. It's also a sign of where they're at, that they don't have a ton of other options. But yes, as the game went along, though, he hung in there. He
blew
plays.
Up that screen where and I watched that play back. There's a play where he blows up a screen and basically I think it was tackling Chase Brown before Chase Brown could even catch the ball. And I don't think it was a corner blitz. That can happen when he was the outside boundary corner. He's not guarding Chase Brown. He's guarding the outside X receiver, and he immediately at snap breaks at Chase Brown to break up the screen. And it could be a cornerback blitz, but from how every other defensive back was reacting, they were all reacting like, they were on their men, and it was not like Sanders still was not supposed to be there. It was Derek Jeter-esque to be in the right place at the right time. But yeah, so like this is the luxury of winning, right? That if they lose this game, we're really focusing on the defense. We're focusing on, is Joe Witt Jr., like, how are they doing? I will say visually, though, they like, where the other Commanders defenses in the past, there would be like one guy to tackle one player. There were multiple guys to tackle one player. And that is an improvement. I am interested in hearing from John Allen and Daron Payne about, they haven't done much. And I'm wondering whether, it can't be by design. So I would like to hear why they're not doing much, because they are the best players on this defense. And this pass rush is not effective. And those are the guys that are going to have to be effective for that pass rush to be anything more than the worst in the NFL, essentially.
But I will say also, like this past week, Joe Witt Jr., when he was talking about, what they're looking for in this defense. I threw out some defensive stats yesterday on Twitter, and largely my point would be they're blitzing about as much as they were at this coaching staff had in Dallas, but they're not getting to the quarterback nearly as much. And they're also playing a lot more zone than they were in Dallas. And I think part of the latter issue there is because they're not getting enough pass rush and these corners are, rather weak, they're not trusting that group to be one-on-one too much, which is logical. So they need to do all these things to marry up for sure. But one thing that you can discuss scheme and talent all you want, but of course, every coach will say, but effort. That's what you got to give me above all. We'll figure out the rest. And the other day, Joe Witt said, he said basically there's like a handful of guys who are giving us what we want right now when it comes to energy and aggressiveness. He cited Frankie Louvu. He cited Bobby Wagner. He cited, I want to say, Benjamin St-Juste and Quan Martin, I think. Point was nobody was
Quan's playing well.
Yeah, none of the defensive line guys. So there's still more to go. But this, I would imagine, based on this game, he would have other guys on the list. You mentioned a Sanders still. Sure, he gets beat, but he stays in there and plays
Jeremy
aggressive.
Chin made a couple of big plays. Got the non-call pass interference on the 2-point conversion. Like, I don't know if you saw the replay where you were sitting, but he was all over T. Higgins and they didn't call it. Perfect. Right. That's good defense. And before, because I want to ask you two things, Ben. One, I want to talk about the offensive line for a second.
Yeah.
Because I think this was one of the better offensive line performances I have seen from a Commanders team in recent memory, in the fact that, like, sure, they could not run the ball to great effect. But I think Cincinnati went in the game saying, we're going to stop Brian Robinson. We're going to muck things up to see if Jayden Daniels could beat us. And that worked out well for the Commanders. In no time was Jayden Daniels. There was one play, maybe two, where like there was no shot for Jayden to get off a pass. One of those times was the deep ball to Terry that he scored a touchdown on. And the other time was a blitz off his blind side that he just got hit immediately. I don't even know if it's a blitz. Maybe the defensive end or Trey Hendrickson got to him super quick. This was a great performance by if this offensive line can just do this, if they can protect Jayden enough where he can make these plays, make these decisions to decide whether to throw or to run. And then there's multiple times when the play would be down the field and Nick Allegretti's like flying in down the field to knock someone over. Sam Cosmi, same way. Like, this is that feeding off energy offensive line performance that gives them confidence and gives them aggression, because you need that. Offensive linemen, they cannot constantly be going backwards. They need to go forwards. And this is the type of performance where it's like, oh, okay, this was the weakest spot on the team besides number 2 wide receiver and on beyond on this team. And they had a really strong performance tonight or yesterday.
Yeah, no. And, looking at the snap count, Brandon Coleman played one less snap than Cornelius Lucas. I saw a bunch of people, retweeting the play. I think it was like a Daniels rollout, right, where he throws to Noah Brown just in front of the goal line, and on the play, Brandon Coleman like takes down Troy Hendrickson, who would come in and been dominating offensive lineman. Our guy Paul Daner, who covers the Bengals, said the first 2 games, Hendrickson was so good that they forced the other team to change their offensive tackle. And again, this is part of the ascending aspect of all of this. Again, when you look at the roster on a base level, there's a lot of holes, and there still are, but it's an ascending team because so much of it is built around not just the quarterback, but all these younger players that they have. And that's why we don't quite know where this is going. So Brandon Coleman is now able to come in and continue, follow up what looked like to be a pretty good game and take over that spot and give them more confidence as to what they have at left tackle. No disrespect to Lucas, but we kind of know where he is. That's just another piece to this puzzle. Yeah, man. I mean, so much crazy. I mean, the fact that they have not punted in 2 games is nuts. Tress Way is getting to have the best seat in the house. He's got to hold the ball for kicks and things like that. By the way, Austin Siebert, we didn't even discuss the fact that he came out and just made a kick, and there was no real
PATs right down the middle. Like, I'm not used to not sweating.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one thing before I have to bolt. I want to ask you the Dan Quinn question about his demeanor post game. I was expecting like, hell yeah, brother, kind of like a WWE wrestler, and he was not that. He was like the same. Dan, what do you make of that Dan Quinn sort of? And I think it's a positive that he was like this, but what do you make of it?
Yeah, I know there's always like people make the comparisons to a certain degree with him and Dan Campbell with the Lions. They're sort of got the same, first name, but sort of same energy to a degree, same body type. It's like that. Football. That kind of vibe. But I think, and while Campbell, who's obviously doing a great job up there, feels very much more raw and alpha, Dan Quinn, there's a lot more of a thinker and a feeler there. He really connects. That's been the thing. Like, he connects emotionally, spiritually to some degree. I don't know what his religion is, but I mean, like, he's really connecting with these people and with the players and the coaches, and you can see it. And I think this was kind of just part of that. Look, he is, we all were frustrated is wrong, where we knew Jayden Daniels was going to start forever ago, but they kept saying, well, we're not ready to say who it was yet. As we, have more time around him, I just think that he's telling us the truth, but he doesn't want to just get overly emotional or ahead of the situation. He's staying measured. He said, hey, look, we know that Jayden Daniels is good. We're not going to miss a step along the way in his preparation just to say he's the starter and so on. And I think for this, I'm sure he's going, look, it's still only week 3. I can't be up here going, hey, well, I act like we just won the Super Bowl. There's still a long ways to go. He's a defensive-minded guy. I'm sure he probably thinks on some level, boy, we got a little bit lucky here. No mistakes by the offense. The defense gave up a ton. So there's still a lot of work to do. But yeah, I mean, they say, Mike, act like you've been there. Well, this is a guy that's coaching the Super Bowl. This is a guy that won a Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator with Seattle. He's Dallas, whatever. They were really, really good defense last 3 years. To him, this is another game. But of course, here in this football star of town, having waited for find the next quarterback for 30 years, we all have a different feel. So I just think that he was, you see the video post game in the locker room. He's in there. There's a lot of happy vibes, and no doubt he is. But it is week 3. It is measured, and the coach can't be up there going, look how great we are. We can. No, they got to get ready for Arizona. That's up next. It's a short week. He's got to get going, and yeah, I mean, I appreciated, now that you're saying it and I'm thinking about it, I appreciated his tone there, because if he comes in there and is just all happy bothered, it would show A, he didn't really believe that they were going to win, and that B, he knows tomorrow's coming. Tomorrow's a thing. It's not just today. As much fun as last night was on to Cincinnati, except in this case on to Arizona.
I heard him say that, by the way.
The other day. Yeah. It was funny.
And I'll say this as a little bow on this. Like, Jayden matches that, right? Like, Jayden came to the press conference and was like, how did I basically ask you guys, like, you'll tell me how I did, right? And like, he's positive and he is smiling, but he's not like, Yeah, this was the biggest game of my life. I showed everyone what I could do. He does the look at my teammates. God gave me this ability, all blessings to God. Like it's all that level. And it is one game. And he's going to Arizona where Kliff has his ghosts and Jayden had his time in the greater Phoenix, Scottsdale, Glendale area. And that's going to be a tough game because the Cardinals are not the old Cardinals. Like that is going to be, they have smart coaching. They have talent, Jamar Chase running deep. Now it's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. running deep. So it's a very tough game. And if they do that Browns game, home game against the Browns on October 6th is crucial. But I got to run. I got to drop my kid off at preschool. So I'll see you, Ben.
All right. Well, Mike's going to do that. And we just finished talking about Jayden Daniels growing up. So I'll end it there here on the Last Man Standing podcast. Thanks to Mike for his time. Thanks to everyone here for checking out the podcast. Again, I'm heading to Arizona where the team already is. I will be out there covering the team's practices as we do here on the podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Last Man Standing podcast. Tell your friends to look, independent of anything else, independent of any analysis or whatever you want to say. Again, I was one of you. I understand how far this thing has fallen. I know how miserable it's been. And, I also know that there's been false hope over the years. Other players, RG3, the most obvious, where, between the injury and maybe the quarterback himself, things went awry. And I can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow. Nobody can. We're all going to be concerned every time Jayden Daniels get hit that there's something wrong there. But he's got the goods. Again, we've talked about a lot of this over the course of the summer. We could see it, but until you get it out there, like Terry McLaurin had a quote that's in my story on The Athletic where he basically says, look, we saw him make these plays all summer, but to do it in this moment on this stage, when the pressure is coming, when the Bengals weren't going away, right? And, Jamar Chase scores his second touchdown. There's 9+ minutes to go. It's a 1-score game. And Daniels leads a 70-yard drive that chews up 7 minutes of the clock and ends with that McLaurin touchdown. You can't execute these things better than that. And to do it not just with some God-given talents, but to do it with poise, everybody says, and calm, and that talent, and make the right plays. It says a lot. And yeah, what a game. I'm glad everybody got to enjoy that. And I can tell you that we all did as well. We've seen a lot of bad football in the press boxes over the years, and that was the opposite of bad football. All right, that's going to be it for me for now. Again, you can go read my stuff on The Athletic. You can follow me on X, hit me up with questions there at Ben Standig. I can't tell you exactly what the schedule will be like this in terms of the podcast, the writing, because everything's going to be, they're keeping the same schedule. So if it's a 1 o'clock practice in the East Coast, it's going to be a 1 o'clock practice there. But of course, that means 4 o'clock here. And so I don't know exactly what time things will work, but just know I'm there. We'll be getting more podcasts out. I'll get more stories up on the website, talk to more people about what we just watched with Jayden freaking Daniels. That is it though for me for now. Ben Standig signing off. Until next time. See ya.